saying that any positive development for Trinidad and Tobago, anything that will progress Trinidad and Tobago in the right direction, is something that the PNM will obviously be happy about and encourage. I'm starting with the whole Dragon gas issue and smiling at the irony of what we're dealing with here today. Because to take your minds immediately back to President's house, just a few months ago, after the swearing in of a cabinet, and none other than the Honorable Prime Minister announcing to the world at large, Dragon was dead with glee. Dragon is dead, and that they would pursue gas in Grenada, Guyana, and Suriname, and that is where they would be. We find ourselves right back here today. It is this PNM administration that did the hard work and the legwork from 2016 all the way through to 2025 with respect to the pursuit of the Dragon gas field, which I want to remind Trinidad and Tobago, because it is obvious that the government will mislead you and the government will be akin to snake oil salesmen. The Dragon gas field is completely within the maritime borders of Venezuela. The Dragon gas field is completely owned by the people of Venezuela. And it is the PNM government that negotiated through very difficult and trying times and managed in December 2023, after many years, to obtain a 30-year exploration, production, and export of gas license from the Dragon field to Trinidad and Tobago waters. That license, which was published by the Venezuelan government and gazetted, and it was the same Minister Munilal, then opposition member Munilal, who with glee was circulating it in public. It was published in Spanish in their gazette in Venezuela. Should read the terms of this 30-year license. So the first point is the Dragon gas is owned by Venezuela, and completely, the field is completely situated in Venezuela, and they have the rights to the gas and the gas field. That is Venezuela. The second thing is what we saw yesterday and the development between Secretary of State Rubio and Prime Minister and her very large entourage that did not include the Minister of Energy. And the announcement by the Secretary of State is absolutely no different to the conversations that he had with me and the PNM administration when I was Prime Minister. I met with him, as you would recall, in Jamaica. We had good conversation. After that, OFAC did cancel the licenses that existed for Dragon as well as Coquina field. After that, you would recall, and I saw it properly reported in one of the newspapers today, the Newsday, you would recall that Secretary of State Rubio had a conversation with me as Prime Minister later on in April, where he made it abundantly clear, and he put out a release, and you should go back to the same release he put out, saying that he will work with us on our energy security and our energy deals. And in the world of diplomacy and diplomatic language, that is what we were talking about. However, premature Minister Munilal coming out and selling to the country, as is the Prime Minister, that they have obtained something is completely false. We had obtained an initial OFAC license in January 2023, where they spell out the terms of what they would allow. And in that license, they had said that you could not pay Venezuela and the people of Venezuela in fiat currency. It had to be in kind. The same UNC were grilling us in the PNM and asking how many times I traveled to Venezuela. And the same Munilal making a lot of noise and fanfare about me going there 13 times. Well, let us see what they do now. Because on every single one of those occasions, it was to meet with the government of Venezuela and their technocrats to then negotiate the terms upon which they would be prepared to allow Dragon gas to be sold to Trinidad and Tobago. And they would not do it for in kind. So you would then recall back and forth, I was going up to Washington, then obtained an amendment to that OFAC license for Dragon. later on in October of 2023 that said you can pay in fiat currency, which is basically recognized currency, whether it be in Europe, EU dollars, or whether it be in United States dollars. It allowed us to be able to pay for the gas. And then it was in December that we finally managed to negotiate the 30-year license. Look at the language very carefully from Secretary Rubio's office that talks about what they are prepared to look at. That's the first point. The second is you now have to go through applying to OFAC and waiting on the terms of the license from OFAC. And it is only then you will know what is the landscape and playing field that you can now go to Venezuela and attempt to negotiate. But as I just said, you have to go to Venezuela and negotiate with Venezuela, the owners of the gas. It is absolutely no secret the position and the stance of this government, and in particular from the voice of the Prime Minister towards our closest neighbor and the government of Venezuela. And if Munilal doesn't know it, the Vice President of Venezuela is also the Minister of Energy in Venezuela now, and the person in charge of these resources. And her name is Delcy Rodriguez. And it is the same Munilal who wrote to the United States government asking for Dr. Rowley and Stuart Young to be sanctioned for meeting with the Vice President of Venezuela, who is now the Minister of Energy, Delcy Rodriguez, who they have been in a to and fro fight with in a most disrespectful manner over the last weeks. I started by saying that we in the PNM would always welcome any positive